Welcome back to the Creating Value in Schools podcast with me, Liz Worthen, where we explore sustainable working in schools. And today I'm delighted to be joined by a highly respected leader in the school business world, ISBL Fellow, trustee, winner of the inaugural Excellence Awards for CFO of the Year, Benedicte Yue. So, we're going to be thinking about how school business leaders can navigate a challenging funding landscape and maybe not just surviving, but thriving and finding opportunities to create change. But Benedicte, it would be lovely to start by hearing a bit about your career journey and what brought you all the way from KPMG Paris to your current role as Chief Financial Officer at River Learning Trust.
Well, good morning, Liz, and thank you for the opportunity to join this podcast. I'm really delighted to be with you here today. So, you are well informed. So, I studied economics and finance in Paris. I worked in a number of sectors when I started at KPMG and then moved to their London office in the financial sector. Quickly specializing in asset management. And then I brought back those skills in France, taking a role as Director of International Affairs for the French Asset Management Association, where I started really to understand how we could be an actor in shaping policies. It also helped me to appreciate the benefits of working with very diverse international teams. And I then had 4 children, and being a parent is really what sparked my interest in education. So I really wanted them to become a global citizen, to understand the world from different perspectives. And we landed in Oxfordshire, where there was a European school, but it was gradually closing. And that was at that time when the free school movement started, and you could set up schools with groups of parents and teachers. So we did, and we quickly gathered a fantastic team of teachers, business people, parents, everybody around my dining table, really, all driven by the same motivation to preserve our school. So we learned the application process from scratch. We made a few mistakes, but we got it in the second round of application, and we opened in September 2012. So that was a beautiful civic moment of people coming together to work on a purposeful project for the community. And as the academic sector was growing and consolidating, there was a need for business professionals to manage larger organizations that were no longer under the control of local authorities. And here I come. So I really loved it. It can certainly be tough at times, but it also brings a deep sense of joy and fulfillment, feeling that we are making a positive difference, not just on the organization, but on the lives of children and young people.
Amazing. Thank you. Brilliant. So tell me a bit more about your role at River Learning Trust. Kind of what sort of changes have you brought about or have occurred since you've been in the role? What are the things that the different approaches that you might have taken that maybe
Yeah.
might be different to someone else?
Okay. So I was new in finance, in a CFO role at River Learning Trust when I started in 2019. So the sector was in a challenging financial position after a decade of real-term cuts. Some trusts like ours had growing pains, having taken a lot of sponsor schools quite quickly. So the first job was to set up recovery plans and bring forward the budgeting process, introduce integrated curriculum financial planning, improve the reporting, train the governors as well. And since the pandemic, the high inflation with cost increasing faster than funding, declining pupil numbers and broken SEN system have made the context even more challenging, which require really robust financial management. So during my time, I have seen the role evolving as the sector is maturing as a finance function, but it's also true for other skills, for other functions like HR, that we are moving away, we see those functions moving away from transactional administrative roles to more strategic roles as the organizations grow, but also thanks to the evolution of technology. So in my area, for example, automation allowed to streamline a lot of the transactional stuff, go paperless, electronic approval, Google Forms, invoice matching. And we also can get data in real times now, which is giving us the ability to reforecast very quickly. We can integrate information from different sources, education data, HR data, quantitative as well as qualitative data from surveys, which really helps to build a holistic picture of what's happening and really inform decisions. So technology has also helped to anticipate and predict a lot more. Predictive analytics is really helpful. So all this is helping with workload and releasing time for strategic thinking, but also for human relationships. So if I had to pick some of the lessons learned through that process, well, there are lots of lessons learned, but I would say you need to be very clear about what you want to achieve. It's important to have a very clear strategy and operating model. So you need to have a clear organizational wiring to support your ambitions. There are different models with more or less autonomy, but in all cases, you need to have a very clear vision of what you want to achieve. Especially when you don't have enough resources, you need to be able to strategy allocate your resources. Good planning is key to anticipate. The more you anticipate, the more you avoid difficult decisions. You also need to look at different strategic horizons. Having a strategy also helps ensure alignment and coherence and avoid chaos so that everybody is aligned around the same vision. It unites people. It really helps to build your culture. The other important thing is people. So people is probably one of the most important things, particularly leadership. So you can have the best system, best processes, but it's all about people and about leadership. In particular, in our schools where we were able to turn things around is really when we had strong leadership and alignment at all levels. So the very important message here is really to develop your people. The other concept I've learned and I really value in this sector particular is the importance of agency. It's a human need. So don't micromanage people. Tell them what you want to achieve, but let them decide how. Replace instructions with information that will give them some ownership and motivation. And so in our schools, for example, when we go through deficit recovery plan, we empower our school, we give them options, we use our expertise to give them options, we tell them the impact, etc. But we let them decide and adapt to their context. We don't prescribe, but we propose. And the other important thing, I think, is working together. Teamwork and mutual respect is very important. There is, I think, in our world, there is so much complexity these days that people at the top can't handle everything. So the idea that one person has all the answers is no longer adequate to the challenges we are facing today. So problems are more complex. They come at us a lot faster. And if decisions are left to one person, it can be a bottleneck for speed and scale. So getting people, especially from multidisciplinary teams, also helps to build a holistic picture of a problem and create solutions. And working together allows to build on a wider pool of expertise. I really believe that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So when leaders can stimulate healthy debate, it fosters creativity and innovation. It creates a marketplace of ideas from where a portfolio of alternatives emerges. And the role of a leader is really to facilitate that debate. For me, I heard that from Sarah Furness. Great minds don't necessarily think alike, but it needs to be done in a safe environment. The other advice is really to look outside the box. I like Leora Kruder's excellent analogy. So if you're having an operation, you wouldn't want your surgeon to work autonomously. You want him to be part of a community of best practice and use the latest technology available. So it's really a message to encourage collaboration. And then I find the concept of psychological safety, you need to help your people grow as well. So the concept of psychological safety is sometimes misused. I think you need to, as a leader, to promote divergent thinking and to foster healthy challenge. People need to be a little stretched to be able to grow. And the way to do that is to try and delegate slightly beyond their comfort zone. And I think once you realize you cannot achieve your goals alone, you have a very different relationship with people. The other things I've learned, I've learned quite a few things. is to really be informed by data and evidence and stop being anecdotal, but really use the tools we have these days to inform our decisions, but also to measure what you value. So to be very careful in how you pick your measures of success to drive the right behaviors, not to be obsessed by input measures. For example, looking at cost of things, but really look at what you value and measure what you value and not what you can measure, and focus really on impact rather than processes. Processes are definitely important, but you should never lose track of the impact that what you're doing is having. Leadership style is also important. When I started, I was given the book in 2019, Steve Mumby, Imperfect Leadership, and there is a whole chapter about power and love. And I think leadership is always trying to find that right balance between power and love. You need to lead and drive with determination, but you also need to empathy and take people with you on that journey. Context matters. That's also another important thing that I have learned. It's all about communities and bottom up as well, rather than top down. I think we shouldn't always expect things to come from the top, especially from the government when they have no money. So it's not a reason not to do anything. And the political agenda is often pushed by short-term impact. So I think what matters and a lot of the problems are in our communities. And I think we have a lot of agency to start initiatives from the bottom. And I'm nearly there, but I think it's not a race for growth. I think growth is a mean, not an end. So we have to be very careful to grow sustainably and with authenticity and moral purpose, and never lose sight of your moral compass. I think if you are driven by values, you never get it wrong. And what I always say to my children, be kind as well. Be kind in that world, and give and share with the system. So that would be my main advice from my journey at the River Learning Trust.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Benedict. You've given us so much already there to think about. And I think words like agency, I feel is a really interesting concept and really helpful, again, in this time of especially straitened circumstances. And there seem to be so many things perhaps we feel that we can't control. So actually, yes, going from there, one of the things, as you mentioned earlier, we are in a challenging funding environment. There is not lots of money at the DFE. So, do you have any advice for those school business managers or head teachers who are looking at their budgets this year? How am I going to balance it? And could that potentially be a way to find opportunities too? Is it always all bad news?
Oh, I try to answer that one, but I have to say, yes, the next 3 years look very challenging. The core funding through the national funding formula is increasing on average by 0.5% next year. So the teacher pay has settled at 4%, the support staff pay at 3.2%. So thankfully, in May, the government announced additional funding, but it's not going to cover the full differential between income and expenditure. And the government is really expecting trust to find efficiencies. They had to make difficult trade-offs between affordability and increasing the pay to a sufficient level to address the recruitment crisis. The financial outlook is unlikely to improve. We know in the June spending review that we are projecting more or less a flat real-term settlement for schools for the next 3 years. So at the same time, pupil numbers continue to decline. And we also have the big issue around SEN. So in this very challenging context, what can be done to mitigate risk and find efficiency? So when 80% of the expenditure is staffing, one of the biggest impact is optimizing the staffing deployment. So for a few years, multi-academy trusts have been using tools like integrated curriculum financial planning, looking at group size, contact time, options. So we tend to focus first on what can be reversed, for example, group sizes, in case the funding landscape improves. But then most of us have been looking at rationalizing procurement. So there is a big effort from the Department for Education to support the sector with frameworks. And at the same time, procurement is becoming a lot more complex and regulated. Cash flow management has also been a very successful strategy over the last 2 years with high interest rates and schools benefiting from a good level of reserves post-pandemic. So this really has helped to secure substantial investment income in some trust. So we try to preserve as much as possible the educational offer. So trusts are now really looking at operational efficiencies, largely through shared services and digitalization. Others are merging, but I think this needs to be done very carefully for the right reasons. Reaching a certain size certainly helps build expertise in some area and have the scale to operate efficiently. But there need to be a subtle balance to be where there is. We need to find a subtle balance, some kind of optimum size. When there isn't enough money, you really also, as I said earlier, you need to invest your resource strategically. And also you need to consider different investment horizons for certain things like digital, like estates, like HR, etc. So that's how I've approached it anyway.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I thought, would you have any advice for maybe, say, the business manager who's in a local authority school? Because, yeah, some schools, yes, in trusts, we see more of that, as you say, rationalizing procurement, getting together for bigger deals. Some of those things, I guess, are harder for schools to do if they're working in a more standalone context. Any advice you'd share for those?
So I'm having those conversations with ISBL. I forgot to declare I'm a trustee there, and it's really how can we take the maintained school sector on that journey of professional development, on digitalization of schools operations, trying to organize digital literacy training, etc., and really to take them on board. We are working together. I'd love to see emerging in some way some kind of shared services model. For me, it doesn't really matter what name is on the door. We really need to work together with those maintained schools and share this best practice with them as much as possible. So I really encourage them to, well, if they're in a standalone secondary schools, yeah, they need to use the same tools to optimize their staff deployment. So it's really, for me, it goes through professional development and digitalization.
And so we're going back then to thinking about trusts again. What are you seeing as some of the opportunities trusts have now got to really make a difference for the communities that they're serving?
Yeah, so this is really my thing about trust. 1 in 5 pupils is persistently absent. 300,000 children in England are missing education, and there is almost nearly a 2-year gap for disadvantaged children by the end of their secondary education. Over 4 million children living in poverty, 1 million in destitution. So this is not acceptable. And you can have the best teachers in schools if some children have their bucket full even before they start learning. For example, if they have not been able to sleep properly, to eat, or have mental health issues due to difficult family situation, this is going to be more difficult. It's therefore very important to try and tackle the root cause and support families. But this does go well beyond the school gates. It needs to be a joined up effort across education, local government, civil society, and employers as well. So as a large employer with the longest relationship with our families, because schools can have several children from the age of 5 to 16 or 18. So we have the longest relationship with our families. We have a responsibility to facilitate this collaboration locally as an anchor institution. So the Rich Foundation is generously sharing their framework to get started on what they call the cradle to career model. It's not new. It came from the Harlem Children's Zone in the States. In Scotland, they work on neighborhood projects. So we had various initiatives in England as well. But we are currently working with United Learning locally to set up a community hub in Oxford in one of our disadvantaged areas. I'm really excited about this. I've just done my community asset map. There are quite a few hubs around the country already. So I would really encourage your listeners to have a look on the Rich Foundation Cradle to Career website and see if they could join an existing network or get support to set up one if their area is not already covered. I think the complexity of today's challenges demands joined up solution. We should not expect, as I said earlier, everything to be fixed from the top, and the most effective partnerships are shaped locally. So schools are really civic institutions with a collective responsibility for the success of the children in their community. And we should probably rethink the accountability to recognize and reward the value of collaborative working and shared impact.
Amazing. So much in there, but just tell me a little bit more first. You referred to seeing your trust as, I think, as an anchor institution. Tell me, what do you understand by that? How?
Well, it means you really try to understand your community and your wider community, as you need to work with all the other civic actors to really, for example, I've just done a community asset mapping to try and understand all the socioeconomic indicators, who are all the players in the area, how could we have a more joined up approach from the very early years with health visitors, social workers, to support the families in nutrition, in things like that, up to the career side of things, really to build links with employers. So it's really being anchored in your community. I wish multi-academy trust would have been commissioned in a more geographically coherent way in the first place. It would have really helped, but it doesn't really matter. We can still work together in our communities, regardless of which trust you belong to. It's all about local area partnerships.
Yes, and what would you say to someone who maybe felt, oh gosh, but is it really, do schools, do we need to take on all of this? Isn't it enough that we just teach the pupils and can't we just focus on that?
Well, we shouldn't lose sight of our core purpose, which is really teaching and learning. But I think you wouldn't, as I said earlier, you wouldn't go very far if you don't tackle the root cause. For example, finding a parents for attendance, we know the research is showing that is deteriorating the relationship and not necessarily effective method. So you really need to understand why the children are not coming to school. And you don't do it alone. You need to build partnerships. So obviously schools don't have necessarily the resources, but it's really working together locally to understand the root cause and your families. And the families, they spend far more time with their kids than schools. So I think when you can extend that relationship and support the families, they can really enhance the learning as well. But unfortunately, in some areas, there are so many barriers to learning that we need to help them address where we can to remove those barriers.
So there's a lot to do. And yeah, coming back to thinking about that school business leader role, I think there's been a lot of talk recently about the kind of stress that school business managers and leaders are experiencing and people wanting to leave the role. Do you think it's a particularly tough time to be a school business leader? And is it possible to thrive in this environment?
It's certainly a tough time for school business professionals. So yeah, we have to do more with less in a challenging landscape with lower pay than the commercial sector. Some colleagues do not always feel valued. And on top of that, schools operations are going through a period of deep transformation with the impact of AI. The regulatory environment is increasingly complex, and consolidation in the sector requires different skills and ways of working. So we all know change can be scary, but it can also be exciting and an opportunity for innovation. So if school business professionals are engaged and supported to adapt, I truly believe that the role can become more impactful, more strategic, and better recognized. But they should not do this alone, and SBPs should really engage in professional development opportunities and in local and national networks. So what are those key changes? I think they become more complex with multi-tier governance structures across a portfolio of schools. They are significant employer, and all this require greater expertise. Recruitment is a significant challenge across the education sector, and yet many do not have a people strategy. So we have to accept that we cannot be an expert in everything, but know enough about the other areas to ask the right question and join everything together. Avoid really working in silos, so keep really that holistic approach and understand the local context. So it really comes down to teamwork with the need to specialize in some areas. So I like the concept I've heard recently of T-shaped leadership, where the horizontal bar of the T is a generalist and the vertical bar is a specialization. So I also think that technology and AI is here to make a profound impact on the way we are working. And to quote one of my colleagues, I caught up this morning, it's no longer acceptable for a school leader to say that you don't do technology. Yes, it needs to be done in a safe and ethical way, and we need more training to explain to school leaders what that means. But technology has a huge potential to alleviate SBP's workload, and we need to take everyone on board on this journey, including the maintained schools you mentioned earlier. So we need to use AI to maximize the self-service, to help manage knowledge in the organization. All the purely repetitive tasks are gradually being automating, which will release more time, I believe, for human relationship and strategic work. But we need training on AI literacy at all levels, starting with investing in infrastructure, switches, connectivity. So all this requires planning. We don't want to end up in a two-tier system where some with expertise will benefit from streamlined processes and data-driven insights, while others remain bogged down in manual, inefficient system. Many schools lack a clear digital roadmap and sometimes struggle to make a clear case for investment when there is not enough money in the system. So technological adoption and broader operational transformation really require significant strategic planning, sustained investment, and expert change management. So some of these complex issues, they can sometimes seem like a foreign language for many working in schools. So this really highlights the significant skills gap where educational professionals traditionally focused on pedagogy are also asked to navigate complex corporate structures and regulations. So I think we have an important role to play here to ensure head teachers can concentrate on their core expertise, leading teaching and learning. So this transformation requires really new skills such as strategic thinking, leadership, data analysis, digital literacy, people management, the ability to handle complex procurement and contract management, and also significant change management and adaptability. So this is where professional bodies, I believe, play a crucial role in providing a structure, in setting standards, in fostering the development of school business professionals and this collaboration. So ISBL self-assessment tool, for example, helps practitioners identify their current competency gap and propose some professional development opportunities. ISBS has also championed the adoption of the operational excellence framework, which suggests that schools could achieve between 20 and 30% capacity savings. So it doesn't mean cost cutting, but removing the bad costs and replacing those by good costs that directly drives outcome. And to achieve this, we also need funding for SBP qualification and above all, protected time. What I hear is that they don't have time to engage in all this. So we really need to lobby for that. We must bridge the skills gap and offer clear career pathway for them. So for me, as I said earlier, it doesn't really matter what name is on the door. MAT or maintain schools, we need to make sure all SBP as part of this professional development journey and that no one is left behind, and equip them with the skills they need to navigate those future changes, whether that involves joining a MAT or thriving as a strong maintained school. So I think the SBPs are not a peripheral figure. They are really central strategic leaders whose expertise is key for the effective operation and financial sustainability and overall success of the school.
I think so often, isn't it, when we read papers and things about professional development, the focus is often very much on the teaching staff or the leadership. And I'd really like to see if we're going to talk about like a professional development entitlement for teachers, let's get that for the operational staff, support staff as well, as you say, so people can dedicate time to networking, collaborating, reading, finding things out. And yes, I feel there's so much to come back to. I think we could do a whole other session on AI and time saving and getting that implemented. But yes, but on that note of reading and developing, it would be lovely to hear, Benedicte, if you have got any recommendations of things that you've been reading recently or listening to that have helped you in your learning or something you've enjoyed.
Yeah, be happy to, but there are so many people inspiring me in this sector. I think you don't work in isolation. You really work with a system, with brilliant school leaders, researchers, policymakers, politicians, all driven by a deep sense of purpose to build a better society. But if I have to use the last few minutes of the Tribune you're kindly giving me, I would flag two documentaries that really rocked my boat, my passion around inclusion and special needs. So one was Jamie Oliver documentary on dyslexia on Channel 4 last June. Jamie Oliver opens up about the shame and frustration he felt in school, feeling worthless and stupid simply because he was dyslexic, and that the kitchen really saved him, providing a place where he could thrive and feel a sense of purpose. So he's using his own painful experience and celebrity really to highlight the struggles faced by so many young people. So the documentary paints an educational system that often fails to support neurodivergent students who represent a really increasing part of the school population. And this is having devastating consequences on them, on the mental health of those concerned and their future. So we really need to make our schools more inclusive. And if children, I heard another nice quote the other day, if children don't learn the way we teach, we need to teach them the way they learn. It doesn't mean having a substandard education system at all. It means improving accessibility, having assessments, curricular models that are designed with all learners in mind. And the second documentary was released during that really moved me. It was released during the pandemic and really encouraged me to support the inclusive agenda even more. This one is more around racial discrimination. It depicts a dark part of British history where not that long ago in the 1960s and 1970s, Black children were disproportionately and wrongly labeled as educationally subnormal and sent to special schools. And this institutional racism was based on biased IQ tests and lack of understanding of cultural differences and the trauma experienced by children from the Windrush generation. So it features really testimonies from people who suffered lifelong consequences and low self-esteem. So thankfully, some activists like Bernard Cord exposed this, and the educationally subnormal label was removed. So this documentary is on BBC One. It's called Subnormal, a British Standard. So there's nothing against Britain here at all. Most countries have their own scandals from the past. And as current citizens, we sadly cannot change that, but we can deeply apologize and have a role in building a better society. So if I need to end with one message as the education white paper is being drafted, it's really a plea for more inclusive schools. I think we can all benefit from educating children together with teaching methods that respond to individual differences. It has also a profound impact on profound social benefits as well by changing attitudes to difference. We can learn from each other and form the basis of a more just and non-discriminatory society. And as well as having, coming back to our finance point, benefits economically, because if you educate everyone in a unified system, it's also more efficient having everybody together in one school. So I'm sorry if I deviated a bit from the pure school business management agenda, but all these operational functions are really enablers to achieve wider goals, and we should never lose sight of the North Star, and all start with why, isn't it?
Definitely, yes. That's something that's come up in a few conversations, starting with your why. And you're quite right. Your job may be, yes, your job may be processing invoices, or you might be working in the office or whatever. But actually, say everyone in the school is about having that
Yeah,
impact on
the
people.
man on the moon. Yeah, the laser thing.
Yeah. Oh, so thank you so much. You've packed a lot in, given us so much to learn and think about. And I think one of the things I'll really take away is your encouragement for, teamwork, collaboration, not doing things on your own.
And professional development, very important.
Absolutely, all of that. Thank you very much, Benedict.
My pleasure, Liz. Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.